how long is your break going to be for, so that you're not giving it up forever, but so that that child knows they have a choice. You know, we have a lot of children we work with who are gymnasts or ice skaters, and I've seen over the years that it's really essential for those children to work with a cycle of relaxation and unfoldment, and then times when they're really focused. And if there isn't a differentiation for that child, sometimes what happens is they get burned out, similar to the way a child in a public school gets burned out doing a huge amount of work every day in a certain way.
So then the music becomes a have to instead of a want to.
Yes, and if they're restricted in the ways in which they access their interest in music, so that they don't have a choice, then instead of it becoming something they want to do and that they love doing, it becomes something they're forced to do.
You would say, okay, it sounds like you want to take a break from your piano lessons. How long of a break would you like to take?
Right. Well, let's take a 2-week break, and then let's come back and try it again. Instead of saying, you know, you have to practice your piano every day, or you must do this forever. I found that most children, if it's really a great love, they will come back to it. And that is not to say that there aren't times when we do need to create structure and stick with structure, but there's times for opening and times for closing or relaxing.
And I suppose, too, really life is a buffet. You know, when they're children, they get a chance to experience lots of different items on the buffet. But, of course, it's so important to have that closure, that completion, so that the child doesn't feel like they're just starting and stopping things. So I know with my own daughter, she wanted to try violin, and then, how do you know if you're going to like it or not until you take the lessons? And she discovered that she didn't really like it as much, so then we came up with the completion. Okay, why don't you finish it then off this semester, finish it off this spring, and then we had a lovely little recital where she could show off what she knew, and the teacher was a delight and even gave her a certificate for completing, that semester of violin, which I thought was really nice.
I think that that's a beautiful way to create closure. One of the stories that I like to share is that when my children were homeschooling, we would meet twice a year, one at Christmas time and one in the summer, and we would decide what we were going to do for the next 6 months, and we never made a contract for longer than that period because I wanted to make sure that they felt successful and they could choose to stay home and homeschool, or they could choose to go back to school at that point. Usually they homeschooled. And on a few occasions when they did go to school, they usually came home after Christmas, but they always had a sense of completion.
In fact, let's talk some more about that, Marilyn. I feel instinctively that you'd be the perfect person to ask this. So let's say you homeschool and you love homeschooling and you really believe in your heart that this is the best path. But especially girls, they want to have the school experience. So if your child comes up to you and says they want to go to school, what would you suggest how we respond?
Well, that has been a common theme, especially with children who have homeschooled most of their life. And usually it occurs in the 7th, 8th, or 9th grade that they need to test their own boundaries. I think personally, I have always given my children and recommended to parents that I've worked with that they give their child the chance to try. Truthfully, in most cases, after trying, they come home or they come back because the quality of education is so different at school. I remember my daughter decided to try high school after she'd been homeschooled through the 8th grade, and she was there for 3 weeks, and after 3 weeks, she came home and said, Mom, that was a total waste of my time. I really am never going to become a director if I continue doing this. I know we said I would wait until December, but I can tell you this isn't going to work. And so I do feel it's important to give children an opportunity to try learning in numerous environments so that they learn that learning takes place in numerous ways, in numerous forms.
So you would probably say, okay, let's try it for a semester and then explore it after that.
Yes, and in some cases where it's really excruciating, they've been there for 2 or 3 days and they just know that it's really it's detrimental to their well-being, and you don't want to push them beyond what is really good for them. Then I would say let them come home, and then they've had the experience. They feel like they got out there, and they now know what it feels like to be in school, because it's usually the excitement, the initial first days of going, and what am I going to wear, and in younger grades, what is my lunchbox going to look like? That's the fun. It's not the day-to-day going to school.
And what if they like it? How do we wrap ourselves around that?
Well, then what I always found, what I've always recommended is that the parents stay intimately involved with their child and teacher through the learning process. My middle child, who is actually an Air Force captain, had a propensity for loving public school. He loved the structure. It really did fit his needs, and so he eventually went back to school. And what I discovered was the key was continuing that one-on-one relationship, whether a child is in school or home. It's really the parent who serves as the context for a child, provides the safety and security. And as long as that parent is really deeply involved, it makes a huge, huge difference.
You're dialoguing with them, then you're saying, how is it going? You know, do you feel that this is helping you to be your best, to use your talents to the fullest, to help you achieve and fulfill your dreams?
Yes. Are you losing yourself? I used to say that to one of my children. I used to say to them, you don't look like you know who you are. You're not being yourself. Does this really work for you? And then we would talk about that so that they could stand back and look at themselves. And even my son, who did go back to school, in his junior year, he said to me, I'm very burned out with public school. He came home for a year and then finished high school back at the public school. And I think it's wonderful for children to know they have choices and that they're part of the process.
How do you homeschool if you have some children in school and some that are being homeschooled?
Well, you know,
does it divide the family? Does it hurt the family?
I think that it provides some opportunities for families. For one thing, what it does is it allows a mother to spend a lot of one-on-one time with one or two of her children. When you have, and it is really a wonderful thing to have that kind of bonding time, and it's something, as you know, that lasts a lifetime. And so it is, I think, very workable to have a child in school, if it's right for that child, and still be working at home. Now, that's my own personal opinion. I know there are other parents who would not necessarily feel comfortable, but I found that it gave us that individual time and attention.
Now, I remember speaking with a homeschooled mom, 3 children, and the daughter went to school, and then the daughter started feeling like the mother didn't love her as much.
Exactly.
Because she wasn't spending as much time with her as she was with the other 2 children.
Right, and that does become a concern of quality of time, and then it becomes a responsibility to make sure that you spend that time with your child in different ways, whether it's helping them with their homework or doing things together or spending alone time in the evening. And I do think it's a balancing act. I mean, and it is one of the challenges of sending a child to school is that when a child is in school, you lose the opportunity to spend time together, and in a sense, to help to fulfill that life purpose on a day-to-day intimate level. But I think that does need to be balanced with a child's desire to try to reach beyond their boundaries, because self-confidence in their own ability is so key for a child.
So we're talking about helping our child identify their dreams. Do you ask them openly? You know, what is your dream? What do you see yourself doing? 5 years from now, 1 year from now?
What I have found is that it doesn't usually work as well to try and force a child to conceptualize a year or two down the road unless they're actually a competitive athlete or actress or actor who has a very clear, strong focus. And there are those children who know exactly what they want to do when they're age 10.
Otherwise, they just kind of feel on the spot and they're not able to articulate what's in their heart.
Yes, and or what you're doing is you're doing it together. You're working together as a team, and you can talk about that every person has a purpose in life. I've always thought that was important to tell a child. It lights up their eyes. I mean, it makes them so excited to realize that they're special. Every child is unique, and that they're here to do something that's very unique and special to them, and that you as their parent have confidence in their ability. And this is so wonderful for children who might be struggling, children who are coming into homeschooling, who might have been in a public school environment where they didn't feel special or loved or appreciated or had a hard year. It's so important to come back to knowing that there is something about me that makes me unique.
And I suppose this helps with sibling rivalry as well, because you explain to children that everyone has their unique gifts, and sometimes they're the same. No need to compete with your brothers and sisters, because some things you're going to do together and some things you're going to do separately.
Right, and it comes right back to the power of appreciation